Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible.
Thank you. This meeting is being televised by Chelmsford Telemedia. Anyone else present that plans to record? Okay, great. All right, welcome to this meeting of the Chelmsford School Committee. First matter of business tonight, I would like to introduce and welcome the newest member of the Chelmsford School Committee, Mr. Jeffrey Doherty. Jeff was appointed to fill the vacancy when Al Thomas stepped down last night at a joint meeting of the Select Board and the School Committee. Many of you will recognize Jeff as he serves as an administrator and teacher in Chelmsford Public Schools for over 30 years. Like his predecessor, Jeff brings a wealth of knowledge about the workings of the Chelmsford schools to the school committee. So, welcome to the committee, Jeff. I think I speak for the whole committee saying I look forward to working with you for the rest of the year.
And I look forward to working with the committee. Thank you very much.
Okay, first item of business tonight is approval of the minutes from our meeting on August 6th.
I make a motion to approve the regular school committee meeting notes from August 6th, 2019.
Seconds? Okay, seconds. Any comments or corrections?
Abstain.
Good. Okay. All right, being none, all in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Any abstentions?
Aye.
Okay, 4 approve and 1 abstention. All right, no student representatives yet. We assume when school starts, we'll be here. So
typically after school starts.
Yeah.
okay. So moving on to good news.
Good news is very quick. Katie Sims wanted everybody to know that the adventure course is going up at the high school. So if you go to the front of the high school, you'll actually see the polls went up. And the other good news is we're ready. We're ready for students to come back to school. Teachers are in the buildings. We have all of our materials ready to go. So it's kind of an exciting time.
Okay, anybody else have anything?
You can take them now if you want.
Say it.
Kids.
Yep, drop them off. Drop them off. We love children.
I just have a couple things in terms of good news. So along with the appointment of Jeff last night, there was also special recognition at the selectmen meetings for Al Thomas. Both the select board and State House representatives gave Al some proclamations in honor of the 40-plus years of service he had to the Chelmsford Public Schools as a teacher, coach, administrator, and school committee member. So I'd like to thank the select board, along with State Representatives Jim Arcero and Tom Golding, for recognizing Al for all the time and effort he's put into service to all the students and teachers of Chelmsford. So that was a nice little event last night. Other thing I wanted to just mention is that last week we had a chance to meet as a committee in a little workshop to discuss how we did last year with meeting our goals and sort of coming up with some plans for our goals for next year. We also discussed formation of a new strategic plan and what's going to go into that. So hopefully be hearing more about those things in the next couple of meetings. So. All right, next up is public comment. So would anybody like to come forward, public comment? Okay, moving on to new business.
Moving on, our first item on the agenda this evening is introduction of some of our new staff members. And through the budget process this past year, we were able to allocate for and provide a new special education department chair in the SPED department to really work with our intensive populations, which have grown over the last number of years. So I'm very pleased to have Ms. Taryn Derry here this evening. Taryn, if you'd like to come up, Amy Reese, our Director of Student Services, is with her as well. And I'll just read, to give you a little bit of background, some of the announcement information that Amy had sent out. But it indicates, please welcome me in joining Ms. Taryn Derry to Student Support Services. She's going to be filling this new role as the Ed Chair for Intensive Programs. She'll oversee the Autism Spectrum Disorder Program at the Byam and Parker, as well as the Functional Academic Life Skills Program at Center and Mccarthy. And she comes to us with a wealth of knowledge about severe disabilities. I don't want to go all through your background, but maybe you'd like to just introduce yourself and talk a little bit about some of the places you've worked in the past.
Sure.
And we're thrilled to have you here and joining our team.
Thank you. Is it on?
No, you're good. You just talk like you're doing.
Okay. So I'm very excited to be joining the Chelmsford Public School Department. I spent the last 2 years working as a supervisor of special education out in Orange, Mass, for the consolidated districts of Mahar Regional School, Orange Elementary, and Petersham Elementary. Prior to that, I had been in the North Middlesex district for 7 years, where I implemented, developed a program for students on the autism spectrum when I started there in 2010 and worked straight through 2017, doing that prior to wanting to pursue administration. While I was there, I also went back to school and got my doctorate in educational leadership. And prior to that, I had been at the Kennedy Krieger Institute down in Maryland through Johns Hopkins, working primarily in their life skills and autism program in a school down there, completely, a separate out-of-district placement, doing that. And I got my start in education in Lexington Public Schools, and also spent some time working as an instructional assistant for the Lab Collaborative as well. So I pretty much always knew that I wanted to go into education, and then I got my bachelor's in elementary ed, knowing that I wanted to go for special ed as well. So, but the intensive special needs population was always my area. I got my master's in severe disabilities, and that's really kind of where I've been at in the past 2 years. I, ran a lot of meetings and all that, and the intensive special needs was where my heart was, and I sat in a lot of meetings that were more along the lines of, reading disabilities and speech and language only, things like that. And although very important areas, it was always the intensive populations that I was drawn to the most. So when this position came up, I was thrilled to apply for it.
Well, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
Yeah, Taryn's been with us for about a month or so. And,
Yeah,
we'll
beginning
be-
of August. It's been a great transition, and we're just thrilled to have her as part of our team. And her knowledge and background, I think, is going to be instrumental in helping us to not only support the teachers in those intensive programs, but to help with our program enhancement, et cetera. So she's hit the ground running. So
Well, thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. And we're going to have to reschedule our second special education chair, Ms. Shauna Mottram, is not able to be here with us this evening, but we'll invite her to a future meeting so you can put a name with a face. She also is coming on board this week as well, and she's going to be primarily working at the high school. All right? But I'll re-add that when she comes back. All right, next up this evening is Bill Silver and technology. So we have done a lot of discussion over the course of the spring and summertime. Thank you for coming. Spring and summertime around some of the technology initiatives we're going to be rolling out, dealing with our network, and we're very excited about the one-on-one initiative. So we asked Bill if he could come tonight and give us a little bit of an update of some of the activity from the spring, what he's been working on over the summer, and then what parents can expect as the school year begins. So once Bill gets set up, we'll turn it over to him.
Okay. Sorry, I should have had that ready to go.
I'm usually the one having the technical difficulties before the meeting starts.
Okay, thanks for having me. I'd like to just give you a few quick updates. Usually when I say quick, it's like 2 hours, and then I'm moving on, but tonight I promise it's quick. I only made 4 slides. So I'll give you a brief review, because I was here in January, and I kind of went over our steering committee and our one-to-one plan and laid all of that out for you. And obviously you approved that in the budget this year, so we're able to kick off this one-to-one. So again, I brought to you the steering committee finalized guiding documents. All of that was approved in the budget. This year, we also added about 50 new Chromebook carts to the district, so about 1,500 more devices, and that was really in preparation for MCAS. This was the first year that the state had said everyone really needs to test digitally. Not all districts did it, but we were able to do it. We have a new infrastructure, as you know, we've built over the last 3 years, and a bunch of new devices. So we were able to fully test digitally this year. It went very well. Really no technology glitches or issues, and now we're just awaiting the final results of online testing. I just want to bring you up to speed on some of the current projects. So there's always some kind of project in the works, but summer is when we really try to focus in and make a lot of progress with some of the projects that we're doing. The end of June, we added new ClearTouch display panels to all the teachers' rooms who are going to be part of the first wave of the one-to-one, and we also outfitted all of grade 3 with the new touch panels as well. So about 80 of those went up, and that was done basically by July 1st. Right now, we're in the process of upgrading our internet bandwidth. This is a program that we do through E-rate, which gives districts the opportunity to get a reimbursement for things like, internet, and then on the other side, we've taken advantage of Category 2 type of funding, which is all for network infrastructure. So this went through E-rate. They approved our application, and we're excited about that. So we're going to be able to upgrade from 500 megabits to 2 gigs of internet speed, which is a significant increase. This also includes new firewalls for Mr. Moses, their Palo Altos, and a new filter that we're actually really excited about. Right now, we always filter students and teachers when they're in our buildings with the SIPA compliant filter. This new filter, it's called Family Zone. This will filter not only at school, but it will also filter devices at home. So this was really big for the one-to-one. So now when kids go home with their device, they'll have the same type of filtering in place as they do when they're with us. We have a big security upgrade going on, and this was one of our large capital projects. This summer, the Mccarthy and the Parker were getting upgraded. We have tons of new cameras, at least 64 new cameras at each of those locations that provide probably over 150 different views, because some of the cameras have multiple lenses, so they can capture 2, 3, 4 different shots at a time. Every single door got a door contact put on, so we'll know when any door in the entire building opens. And we'll also have a piece in place where doors that we really don't want or expect people to be entering and exiting out of, we'll create an alert that will ring down at the main office, and they'll have to attend to that alert, make sure the door is closed, and then it will stop the alerting process. One other nice thing, we did apply for a grant, and it took a while, but in the middle of July, we were given that grant. It was $60,000, so that's going to go towards a server system for the cameras, which is a hyperconverged server setup from Pivot 3, and that will allow us, as we progress and do the high school and then the 4 elementary schools, to have all the cameras on one large server infrastructure. So that's fantastic, and we're happy about that. And if you're keeping track, that gets us close to, in the last 4 years, close to $1 million worth of grants that have come in through the technology department. And finally, I left this one to last, but the one-to-one device deployment. We deployed devices to all teachers before they left for summer. And Dr. Hirsch, in a few moments, will bring you up to speed on all of the work that the teachers have done. But they all have their devices. They've been using them. And tomorrow and Thursday, we'll be deploying to the students in grade 5 and grade 9. We have 4 different sessions planned. We'll have an 11 to 2 session on each day and a 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. session on each day. And then anyone who isn't able to make it to those, we've invited to come to central office and pick up their device. And this is going to be a really great initiative. There's a lot of excitement around it. Teachers are excited, administrators are excited, and we know the kids are going to be, over the moon when they get these devices, and it's going to be really good for the district. So I promised you quick. That was quick, right?
Is that me now? Am I up?
Yep.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Let me ask you a question while I put this up.
Want to ask Bill, a question before we get started? Sure.
Is it okay?
Of course it is.
On the doors supervision, well, this allows you to know what's going on with doors and so on. Are you reviewing that regularly? How does this work in terms of
So-
that data?
Yeah, every single event, and an event would be a door open, a door closed, a scan-in, is all tracked in the system. So we're expecting things to happen at certain doors. Where we put card readers, access readers, we expect that a lot of traffic will come in and out of those doors. We don't expect that we'll have traffic in doors that don't have those readers. So, because we don't have someone watching the system all the time, we're gonna rely on the system to create an alert. The alert will basically, bring up a map on the principal's screen, and in the main office, we'll have a display, and it will alert them to where the door is open, so that they can respond to that.
It could be a wonderful way of monitoring, because some of our schools have so many entries
Right.
that it would be a wonderful way to know exactly what's going on.
Yeah, and that was one of the main reasons we wanted to put the contacts up, is because there are so many exterior doors. We want to be alerted if one of those happens to be ajar even a little bit, just for the safety of the people in the building.
That's excellent. Thank you.
Any other hardware questions before we move on?
I can't answer hardware questions.
No, thank you for doing all the work, Bill.
Thank you.
All right, you're up.
So to piggyback off of what Bill is talking about, first of all, his team and Bill have done a tremendous amount of work. I mean, this is a big, heavy lift, and it's going to continue on through the next few years, as well as all the curriculum work that goes with it. So we're really appreciative of it, because it's giving our students access to information and curriculum that they may not get on a daily basis without some of these devices. Beyond even the one-to-one device, there are many devices within our schools, so it's not as if you're part of one-to-one, you suddenly can't access things. We have plenty of devices, and the teachers are all working very, very hard to make sure that they are providing students with the best possible education. So thank you, Bill, and everybody thanks you. So I'm just going to I only have 7 slides, and 2 of them is the beginning, and 1's the question, so it's really 5 slides. So a lot of work had to happen ahead of time prior to the upgrades that are going on and deploying these devices. So over the past school year, there were 2 sessions of a graduate level class through Fitchburg State for our teachers for blended learning. Now, we did target our 5th and 9th grade teachers because they were the ones that were going to be receiving the devices. However, teachers are always open to be able to take any of our courses. And we had upwards of 50 participants throughout the school year for the 2 sessions. So they can either take a graduate level course, they can take it for PDPs only, or if they pay a very, very small fee to Fitchburg, I think it's like $279, they can receive 3 graduate credits towards either a degree or towards a lane change that they're working on. So that's very helpful. We also offer other courses beyond this, but this is the course. We always do everything based on our initiatives. So we're going to be also offering this continuation of this course for the next group that's coming through, and any teachers that would like to jump on. So this next school year, there'll be 2 more semesters of blended learning from our staff that's teaching the courses as adjunct faculty with Fitchburg State University. We also have, for people that are not interested in maybe doing a graduate class, don't have the time, but need a different access, there's a self-paced online Google Chrome class that teachers can take. So it's completely asynchronous. They go on, it's again monitored through our staff, through Bill's department, that the teachers could then get 15 PDPs in that module and get the education that they need in order to be self-sufficient with a lot of these devices. And again, we're going to be offering that for this next school year, so we're very grateful for that. And then we have incorporated blended learning into our professional development calendar. So during the school year, we will be focusing on the use of technology, but then with our software that we use. So for example, we have iReady, we have iXL, we also have Edgenuity up at the high school. So there's a lot of different ways that the teacher's gonna learn how to do maybe a station rotation, or how to read the reports that come out of some of these things, and then how can they help their students moving forward. And there's a guiding document that Bill had spoke about earlier. That's the document with all the questions. If they have some time, they can peruse it. But if you need the questions, it's up on the website. That's shared with the family and staff already. And then, as he spoke about, the online sign-off is going to be happening for parents and students to receive their devices, and they're deploying those devices in the next few days. So lots of happenings that are going on. So that's all the preparations to get to where we are. What you have in front of you now is, as teachers are building content within the Google Classroom for students to access, there has to be some uniform pieces to it. So in our different classrooms, this is the template that teachers will use in order to start creating their pieces of work for students to access. We'd like to see the objectives, the lecture, the required readings, anything that they have to watch for a video, discussion, assignments and assessments. Now, within these different pieces that are here, they don't have to use every single one. I mean, yes, we'd like to see an objective, we do need to see assignments and some type of an assessment, but there may not be a video that they're directing their students to. So this is the top layer, and as students go through this, they will be able to access all of the work. And this is going to take some time. They're building this content now. This is actually modeled after Blackboard Connect, which is what our students, when you go to college, whether you're an online or face-to-face course, everybody uses Blackboard to give their assignments, get feedback. That's how your professors talk to you. So we have a responsibility to make sure that our students have some format of that prior to leaving the Chelmsford Public Schools and then going into the university, because they will be required to have a computer when they go to college. So this is just that template and what it looks like to help teachers organize it and help us understand what's going into that content. So there was a lot of summer work that happened. I mean, obviously, we can't have all teachers working on summer work, but there's a good group that has already started that legwork to be able to help their colleagues out and continue the work. So in health, they were actually able to get their entire 5th and 9th grade skill-based curriculum through that template up on Google Classroom. So they were in very good shape. History and social sciences, they had the world language teachers. They've been populating their template, as well as pacing guides that are populated onto Google. So again, Google Classroom is the way for our students to actually access the work. And then in ELA, we have 3 levels of English, and all those teachers are building, groups of teachers are building the content and the activities that go along with that. And the grade 5 teachers are doing the same thing. They teach both social studies and ELA in grade 5, so they've been populating all of the work that they can share off with their colleagues and continue with. And then in math and science, collectively, they work in pairs because, again, the 5th grade teachers teach math and science at that level. And they have their collaborative activities, if it's science, their lab investigations, discussion boards, and then instructional resources. So the legwork is starting for the teachers to be prepared for this upcoming school year. So then our next steps is, obviously, this work has to be shared out with their colleagues. So that's part of their charge of doing summer work, is to make sure you share what you have. And then we'll obviously provide in our department times, continued time to build the content that is needed. And, you know, you're gonna, these are living documents, so it's not as if you put something in these modules and that's what you have to do. As teachers, like they always do, whether it was online or with paper and pencil, you come up with a new activity, something exciting for students, you change what you do, but at least we'll have it in one spot for everybody to be able to access. We're going to have to obviously support those 5th and 9th grade teachers as they go through it, because everything looks good on paper, everything looks good when you're building it in the summer, and then the kids show up, and, you know, things change dramatically. So we'll make sure that there's a lot of support for that, as well as launching it for the 6th and 10th grade teachers. So this is a 4-year process of 5th and 9th, then we have to go to 6 and 10, and you can follow the pattern from there. The students need to be provided with guidance as well as the expectations. What is happening? You need to constantly reiterate that with students. And then there's also the parent piece. So we're going to be building in some ways to have parents understand what this process is, how they can support their student at home, their children. And I was actually pretty quick, so now I'm on questions.
Anybody have any questions?
Have we reached out to parents to make sure that if they do not have internet at home, that they can work through Comcast to get that grant that I think that they offer?
It's on page 7 of the guiding, I'm only kidding.
And actually, it's not 7, but it's in the, the report, absolutely. So yeah, Comcast has a program for any family that is on free and reduced lunch. They can get a very highly reduced rate for internet. Some other things that we'll have built in for students to use is they can download assignments before they leave school, and they can work on them offline. And as soon as they come back, it'll transition back into the cloud for them.
Thank you.
And our teachers have a good handle on anybody that would need any additional support or paper pencil that might be needed. I think to Maria's point, maybe last meeting or the meeting prior to that, we'll have to do some, some marketing and help for parents that could use that discount. How can they get that help?
That's good.
Thank you.
So out of all the teachers that are in total in the 9th grade and in the 5th grade, 50 so far have taken this course and so on. What's that percentage about?
It's high. There's 50 that took it, and there's 60 people in the first wave of the.
Okay.
Right,
one-to-one, So
right.
it's very
So it's a
high.
very high percentage have taken the course. That's terrific. The other thing I wanted to ask is let's say a teacher wants access to some Google video or content that's out there. I think they have a lot that, the 3D type of content and so on. How, do you have a system whereby the teacher can request that? Do we pay? Do we subscribe to something? How does it work?
So a lot of Google's free, which is great for education. Even what you're talking about, I think, is expeditions, where they're like in a
Yes.
virtual reality. And my staff, the integration specialists, are familiar with all of those pieces, and teachers absolutely can request their assistance to do a project or learn something new. That's why they're here, and they're excited to do that, so.
Is there an additional cost for that, or is that included?
Generally, no. Anything that's really Google-based is free. There are different
That's great.
add-ons and things like that to some of the programs that you can purchase, and some of those are beneficial, and we take a look at those as they come up and kind of weigh the cost versus what you get from the add-on.
That's terrific. Thank you.
What kind of supports are there for the teachers on a daily basis, because you know how technology is, and,
Right.
you think you have your lesson all set, and all of a sudden you can't connect or whatever. What do they have?
It doesn't happen
So,
here.
so they, well, first, that's one reason why we took the time we did with the infrastructure. So, connectivity-wise, things like that, I'm highly, highly confident that we're not going to see problems in that arena. But they do have access, obviously, to help desk. They can call from their desk phone. They just dial help, and the help desk picks up. They can enter a help desk ticket, and we deploy technicians.
So
almost
is there
every-
somebody available in every building?
Yeah, and I have a TIS integration specialist basically in every building that's available to do some triaging and help get everything going.
Yeah, because we know it doesn't always go as
Yeah,
planned.
no, it doesn't, as we all know. And I think you're kind of downplaying it a little bit. The TIS in the building, are a tremendous help. They're very qualified, and the teachers themselves are excellent with each other. How many times have you been like, I can't, and somebody's like, oh, I got it, it's done in 2 seconds, and then you try to learn it. So everybody knows that they have to kind of hold hands and, do this together. But the TIS, they're kind of like the unsung heroes. The whole tech department, the unsung heroes, right? A lot of work gets done, and they have a huge burden, and they're able to do it seamlessly.
Really, in all fairness to the teachers, too.
Yeah.
You have plans A through
Oh, yeah.
M, right, for when these things go wrong. So,
Yeah,
you
but the
jump
first
to
time through,
J.
you don't
Right,
think you need an M, you're like,
Believe
I'm
me,
good
I'm
with
like, all
K,
right,
and then all of a sudden,
we're
yeah.
moving on to something else.
Yeah.
So,
There are some teachers who already have been using this in the high school and so on. I know my daughters have had some teachers who assign it right at the beginning. And then at night, when they're trying to do homework or do something and there's some glitch, usually every time that my children have had problems, that teacher has been accessible to them. But I think it does add an additional burden to a teacher, in a sense, at the beginning at least. Is there something in the help desk where students can also reach out if they're not able to do something?
Yeah, anyone can really enter a help desk ticket.
Okay.
We encourage parents and kids to do it. Most of my guys are checking their tickets at night. I guess they like the extra burden too, so,
Yeah.
a lot of times people do get responded to, within the same evening that they put in a ticket. Hopefully, we won't see a lot of that, and, the connectivity will be good and things like that, but sure, there's always supports.
That's great. I do want to congratulate you because I think there's been a tremendous amount of work done this summer. Every time I've passed by that room, it seems like everybody is on the go, and I can't even imagine just getting all of these devices ready to just implement and get going with the students. So that's absolutely terrific. I am sure that you've also had some staff, maybe teachers, and also parents who are not 100% in. So hopefully over this next year, as things develop, those people will also be comfortable with the process and feel that it is a good thing for the students and for their families and for the classroom.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we sort of touched on this at our leadership retreat. It's 2019, there's an expectation for kids that come out of high school and out of college that they have certain skills, and that's the world that they're going to enter. And it's our responsibility to get them there. So you don't always have 100% buy-in from anyone in life and anything that you do. But a lot of times if you can prove that it's well done and that it is in their best interest, then, you get enough of the buy-in that you need so that the student excels. And that's the goal at the end of the day.
That's great, thank you.
All right, anybody else, any questions? Great, okay, well, thank you very much. Good luck with the rollout tomorrow, and
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Bill.
sure to go all smoothly.
Oh, Bill, just before you step down, what was just ballpark number? So the number of, emails you sent out with the document to sign to acknowledge this, what was the pool, and like how many have returned it so far, or even in that first couple of days?
There were just over 800 documents that went out to be signed digitally. I think we're down to like 40 families that have not signed off at this point.
Right.
So
Pretty
it was
good.
a really good response rate. And some of that, we may have had the wrong email address, and I'm sure we'll find out when they'll come down to the deployment, and we can help them get their documents signed there, so.
Oh, that's great. All right,
That's
thank you very
great.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving along, item number 4 on the agenda this evening. We have a parent and student handbook for the district. No significant changes for this year, just updating some dates. But we do also then have an addendum for the high school. So Principal Murray is here, and he's provided a memo that talks about some of the substantive changes within the document, and then obviously there are some dates and names that change as well. But I would just invite Principal Murray to walk us through the document and the proposed changes for the coming year.
Thank you. Thanks for having me in the summer. First, congratulations, Mr. Doherty. It's great to have you, and welcome everyone. And I can't say enough about what Mr. Silver and his crew have been doing. It's a massive effort, and his department's just phenomenal. It's going to make a really big difference for the kids and for the things that Dr. Hirsch is talking about and more. Just a couple of quick hits. A lot to celebrate coming up this year. It's exciting. The bus that you bought is going to.
That's later in the agenda.
Oh my.
Don't steal our thunder, okay?
It's wonderful. It can give us more opportunities and save money. The parking lot has its lights in there. Is that later in the agenda too?
No, it's not on the
Awesome, that's great. So it's going to be safe out there, and it looks, and the way they laid it out, it's a lot safer and for vehicles. And then the ropes course they're putting in for our PE classes is pretty phenomenal. So that's just some of it, and our building looks fantastic. Our custodial crew and Mr. Curley has really made it look well and dynamic. So thank you, it's wonderful. So our handbook, we're looking at nothing really big tweaks, but there's kind of 3 categories in which we've made some changes. And one is, the first, I think, important, is to address attendance. We're having a lot of tardy attendance issues, which most schools do across the district, but we're kind of looking at that. The second one is in terms of safety. And the last one we're talking about is we want to change consequences and make teachable moments at the same time as giving a consequence, and hopefully kids can make better choices. And I do apologize. What was on the screen versus what you get when you print out is about a 2-page skewed. So when I say page 36, it's actually page 37, but we'll walk through that. Our first one that we're going to open up to is on page 10, and that's talking about, which is, you're getting major kudos for this. It's about the change in parking, where you don't have to pay the $200 fee anymore. The parking is free, but you still have to register the car. So I'm just pointing that out and letting parents, let kids know that yes, you don't have to pay a parking fee, $200, but you need to register the car for safety reasons, so we know who's on campus. That's on page 10. But what we did do, and the second one is, now we're tightening up on attendance. We have a lot of kids coming in late. A lot of them coming in with coffee cups, which means there wasn't a sense of urgency in trying to get them in there. And so what has happened in the past was, They broke it apart after a certain number of tardies, you lose parking for this, and so the most stringent one was after the 12th tardy, you lose parking for 2 weeks. We've changed that, and now we've opened it to say that at your 12th tardy, you have the possibility of losing it permanently. That means you have to ride the bus to school. You're going to lose that privilege to come to school on your own if you can't be responsible to get here on time. And so that's one of the things we're proposing in there. And because one of the, as Dr. Hurst can talk about more articulately than me, is that the state's looking at attendance now in a stricter form and fashion, and how they reimburse us, et cetera. So we need to be really attentive to that. And we're going to talk to the students about all this as well during our house meetings, et cetera. On page 14, what we did, we do not have a parking problem as it was when I was in school. There were more kids than we had spaces, and now we actually have more spaces than kids. But let's be proactive, and that's what we talk about, the first come, first serve. Eventually, it will work its way, so this way they know what the process is, that our spaces will run out eventually, first come, first serve, and that's what we're putting in there, and then that's the, on page 14. As far as the next one we're doing is the next bullet item, and that is on page 19, and that talks about extracurricular activities. And what we're doing here is that a lot of the kids, they get their detentions for being tardy, and they're not serving their detentions. And it's tough to get the teeth, and I think Dean Doherty knows, so we're doing here, we're gonna add this. We're gonna say that if you do, this is only for kids who skip their detentions or do not have a legitimate reason. If you skip it, you cannot do your after-school club or your sport or activity until you serve that detention. We were last year chasing kids down, and we were doing lunch detentions, and for the last 2 weeks of school to squeeze them all in, and that's just not the way to do it. And other kids we just weren't unaccounted for. But we're trying to hold attendance as a line again. So the after-school activity for those who are skipping would not be available unless they attend to what they're supposed to. That was on page 19. On the following page, on page 20. Our dances are 3 hours long, and usually we say if you come in 90 minutes late to the dance, you won't be allowed. Personally, I think for safety reasons, I like to bump that to 60 minutes. That's halfway through the dance, and I like to get kids there, unless there's an extenuating circumstance and they work out the reason ahead of us. Sometimes there's an activity they can't get to, and if they let us know ahead of time, we know to expect them, that's great. But when they come in cold like that, that just brings us a more supervision issue for us, and I think that's safe. So that's something we want to propose, is moving from 90 to 60 minutes. The next one is on page 37, and this is about prom dates. Well, we're having a lot of underclassmen, which is wonderful, coming to the prom. We find out that a lot of the underclassmen aren't coming to school that day of the prom to get ready, and they're not going the next day either. And if we're looking at attendance, that's a twofer. And one of the things we do say, in general, if you're not in school for more than half the day, you can't attend a night event, and that we do for everything. You can't go to your basketball, sports. Well, we should have the same thing for the prom, and that shouldn't be any different. Especially that time of year for the underclassmen. That's when the finals are coming in and their final projects, and so we want to make sure that we're paying a close attention to the attendance. So that's what we're doing on that attendance. And the last one is we're very excited about. This is a collective effort. This goes to consequences, and this is on page 62. So occasionally schools will have some issues with kids who might have some alcohol, drug, now vaping concerns. And so we worked with the deans, our guidance counselors, our health educator, Amanda Glasser, and Katie Sims, and our SRO, Detective Becky Frank. So what we want to do is this. We want to say, all right, so for instance, 2.1, possession of or being under the influence of alcohol is a 5-day suspension. What we want to do is we want to make this a teachable moment, and hopefully kids can learn through education. So we said we're going to offer the parents, quote, our own diversion type program. If you agree to our diversion program, which I'll explain in a second, we'll lower your suspension to say 5 to 3 days, but you have to enroll in a 4 to 5 week course on safety. So for instance, we have a curriculum that Amanda Glasser has written up, one for vaping, there's one for alcohol, another one for drugs. And so what will happen over the course of the next 4 to 5 weeks, that student is going to meet with the counselor, the next week an SRO, the next week our health educator for the town, talking about consequences, talking about smart choices, talking about the counselor, how do I get out of a situation if I don't want, if you're, because sometimes it's tough to get out. How do you say no? How do you walk away when your friends are there? And so I kind of give kids strategies so in the future they can make a better choice. So we're proposing that for a number of our, of kids being under the influence or in possession of for the vaping, alcohol, and drugs. So we would do, and then for 10 days, someone who's in possession of it as opposed to being under the influence, they would do a same program. Instead of being out for 10 days, they'd be out for 6. And so we're hoping that through meeting with some health educators and some other role models and people within our own community, they can really hopefully learn from that and it not be strictly punitive, but a learning and teachable moment. And we're hoping that kids and parents will hopefully never have to go through that. But if they do, that's an opportunity for them to learn. Because one of the things we're finding out now, at least for vaping, that they're seeing in Wisconsin, with 9 kids they had that are having some lung disease, and they're trying to see if that's related to the vaping and now adults, and there's a lot of unknowns right now. And so if we can do this through education, that's one of our focus points. So those are our changes to the handbook for the upcoming year.
Any questions, Donna?
I just do.
Sure.
Not really questions. First of all, this is fantastic. Thank you for putting in the effort to do this. My first question is, I'm glad to see that we're holding students more accountable. Are we reaching out to the parents to have parents hold them more accountable, for the tardies and whatnot?
Yeah. So we're talking to Detective Tyros, and we were talking to the other 2 SROs as well, and Mr. Sorrigan over at McCarthy is our truant officer. Talk about how, well, for some parents are very attentive and they're working just hard with us. Others aren't, and so how can we get them encouraged? And maybe, would that be a meeting with our SRO? Would that be something we may have to go? If we go to the courts for that for a parent, we usually don't get much response because they have larger issues. For us it's big. For their experiences there, it's not always. But we can see what we can rely on. We're going to be meeting at the beginning of the year about that. Okay. We're going to be talking to parents for sure. We're going to be talking to them by way before school starts, at our open houses and through our house meetings and communication with parents, and then reminding this every quarter, so because it's new, and they need to know that as well.
And then the second one is, I really like this idea of the diversion program. I'm curious as to why it is instead of or, it is an and do the diversion program. Because if you have a kid who's going to go out for 5 days, like 5 days no school.
Yeah.
And great.
Sure. So one of the things that we're asking is that the student participate fully.
Okay.
And so it's like when someone goes to counseling, you can't force them to talk. So we're saying, and if the student's going to go and not talk and not do anything, then they want them to be working with us. So there'll be some flexibility there because every situation will be slightly different, but we want the student to work with us. That's what we're asking. If the parent's involved then hopefully the parent will help us move the child in that direction.
I completely agree. I just worry, about those kids who need help.
Correct.
And then don't get it
You're
because
right.
they don't enroll in this.
Yeah, no,
So,
that's a good point.
but I really, really like the idea of the diversion. I think this is fantastic. And thank you to your staff for creating the curriculum to go along with this.
Yeah, that's Ms. Glazer, and this is Dean McIsaac, and they really took the lead on this, and they ran with the Katie Sims, and so it was a really great effort. We've been working since the spring. We had some meetings through July, and then Ms. Glazer's been plowing away resources and articles, and as well as experiences, and the SROs they're all over this. This is wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I think it's good. The handbook changed, just to let you know. Donna is listed as the secretary, and I'm now the secretary, so I just want
Oh,
you
we
to
can
know.
change that? We can
If she
change
would
that.
like to be secretary, she can have it.
So we can do that, Ms.
No, I'm good.
I just wanted to put that up.
No, we can
No.
make that, sure.
This is all really good. I think the parent thing would be really, so let's say a kid has a problem. When is the parent informed? At what point?
In terms of,
Let's say somebody is doing drugs
they
and you
get,
know it.
yeah, they get notified immediately, and then, so what happens is, there's 2 things when we have our meeting, is there's the meeting with our counselor, and the counselor depending, because our counselors are very good. They know their caseload. They offer right there, they have a whole list of services regarding any kind of issues, whether it's Al-Anon, whatever, these you can go to. We also have some therapists. Our police station has a grant. They have which we used twice this past summer, where they have a health clinician who comes in and helps. It was usually for the whole town, for anyone maybe substance abuse. They come in and they would help out. They've been coming to our schools too now. And so that's another resource for parents and for kids. It's a great question. And that's why I'm so excited with the health educator and the police. They've been really working with us together, and I think it's going to be a good partnership.
Terrific.
Okay. Excellent, thank you.
Anything else? I assume we have to vote on the
Yep,
changes?
just a motion to approve the changes as presented.
I make a motion to approve the changes as presented in the Chelmsford High School handbook.
Second?
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Nope.
That's
5-0.
great, thanks.
Okay,
It's
great.
exciting. I can't believe we're starting in 4 weeks. It's great. No, it's great. Thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Steve.
Happy anniversary, Steve.
Yeah, I was gonna say, happy anniversary.
His wife was very excited
Oh, yeah?
that he came to the school committee meeting instead of going out to dinner.
Now, do we have to do anything with the district-wide handbook?
We don't, there are no real changes in the
Okay.
handbook, and when
Yeah, there's no
Linda
di-
actually had kind of put it together, we didn't put detail about specific things that would need to be changed.
Just
So
the
it's
front
very generic.
page with
Just
the right
front
date.
cover
Okay,
will change with a new date,
okay, great.
so we're good on that.
All right.
Next up, item number 5 on the agenda this evening is a student enrollment update. I know we've talked about this at a few school committee meetings. I actually put in some additional information about classrooms at the different levels, the elementary, the middle, and the high school. And just want to share with you a couple of things that are going on in the district. So when we look, the first page is obviously just a little cover memo that I'll review. The second page is just a chart as of yesterday, our district enrollment chart that kind of walks through our existing numbers. And then we get a little bit more into the specific level detail, elementary, middle, high school. I added the number of classrooms for you to take a look at. So at the elementary school level, the only little bit of a hiccup we're having is over the last couple of weeks, we have had a significant enrollment in kindergarten at the Byam and the Harrington elementary schools. Where, as of last Friday, when I got my weekly update on the numbers, Byam had actually hit 98 at that time, and Harrington came right after them. They had 98. So Harrington, I believe, had 11 registrations over the last week and a half for kindergarten, which is crazy. It's a combination of new people moving to the district. We've also had a number of families, and we're going to have to think about this internally, who have had kids registered in the school district for a while who just did not register their kids for kindergarten. So they should know that school is starting, and we're going to try to reach out and figure out what we can do to possibly attract them in earlier, because it does throw our numbers off, particularly, I understand new people in the district, but if you already have kids enrolled, that was a little bit of an issue to deal with. So when we get into the chart, I'll talk about it. We had previously, through the budget process, identified certain classrooms at the elementary level, and they're in yellow, that we're going to have 5 sections. Our schools typically have 4 classrooms per grade level, but they were already going to have a 5th, which we call a bubble section, to help with enrollment. So I've coded 2 additional rooms, an additional kindergarten at Byam and an additional kindergarten at Harrington in green, just to show you. And then I've actually, in the chart kind of works through the math, that if we had 5 sections, what would that do to the average class size in those buildings? So I would prefer not to go into the school year with, 100, which would mean 25 class sizes across the board, if we can do something about that and actually add 2 additional classrooms, one at Byam and one at Harrington, to bring the numbers down closer to 20 for the start of the school year. We didn't have that luxury last year at Center. We started the school year off, we were not at the 25, and over the course of September, going up to Columbus Day weekend, we had additional enrollments, and we actually hit that number. So it was very difficult at that time when we worked with the staff and the administration to add a teacher when classes have already been formed and relationships are already formed, to separate them out. But early on, when this is happening before the start of the school year, I think to get off on the right foot, we should consider and add those 2 classrooms. So in that chart, again, I've updated the enrollment as of yesterday, so this is fresh enrollment. You can see the yellow classes where the 5s are, and Maria, you've asked for that in the past, just to kind of talk about how many classrooms per grade level, so this chart does that for you.
Yes.
And I've added the greens, so hopefully you will consider we can discuss that tonight and approve that. Then the second part of that spreadsheet is the McCarthy and Parker Middle Schools. And you'll see we're down at the McCarthy Middle School to the split team in 8th grade, still has 10 sections. And that is the last remaining split team at McCarthy. Everyone else has 8. And you can see the numbers across the board between the two schools are pretty even and equitable. So I wouldn't recommend any changes at either of the middle schools at this time. And then lastly, the high school is very difficult to generate a class size report on because it's very much course-driven or section-driven. So I had produced a report with Linda's assistance in June based on the draft schedule at the high school, which hadn't been committed at that time, and there was still some flex in play. But that schedule over the course of the summer obviously finalizes, and the high school has committed to a schedule and sent out their schedule to students. So you actually see the individual classes. I just provided the same information we provided in June. And you'll see across the board, the class size at the high school are very desirable, right through the disciplines. You can see course by course, the course number, the description of the course, the schedule of the course, the total number of students assigned, that's the actual number of kids that are scheduled to be in seats right now, what the max for enrollment for the course was, and then how many open seats we have. And you'll see most of the high school courses are actually in the high teens, low 20s. Occasionally you have an outlier that's a little higher or a little lower. But really, for the hundreds of classes that the high school runs, as I scan this real quickly, I think the highest class, they had one class that had 27. So really, these numbers are very desirable for a high school schedule. So in this part of the report, I'm really actually just providing you the numbers. I'm happy to talk through the elementary, the middle of the high school, or whatnot. We wouldn't be taking an action until a couple items later in the evening on the budget transfer to approve the, hopefully the kindergarten additions, but we certainly can talk about that, now in the context of this report if you had questions or anything else that might have popped out at you at the elementary or the middle school level.
I'm getting worried that you keep looking at me if I have questions on these numbers.
Well, sometimes, Maria,
Okay.
you have questions on the numbers, so just getting ready.
Let me just, if I can I ask you on, we have 5160 right here as a total. How does that compare to last year at the beginning of the year? I forgot to look at my
I'd have to go back and look. I don't know off the
chart
top of my
thing.
head.
to see what we had, but I think that enrollment is up a little bit.
Just a little, it's
You know,
a
it's
It
a
is, it
small
is up a
uptick.
little bit.
It's a
It-
small
there is,
uptick.
right?
It's not that big.
I want to commend you on doing it now, because I think it's really important to make sure we start the year that way, because I think it caused some issues last year, and this is good to avoid them. That's wonderful. The thing at the high school, I think the languages section still, and again, that coordinating coming in and so on is a good thing, but those still have a little bit higher number than what you see overall in the other courses, and that's something we had seen before. It's in the 27s and so on, so it's not horrible, but there it is, except the one person who's taking German.
Well, that's,
That's
it's
online.
online.
That's
Somebody's
online.
taking German and another language here too, but otherwise, I think that is the area that I saw the highest numbers. I also looked at the offerings. Do we offer, I haven't compared it to any other districts and so on, but in terms of programming, we only offer a kind of couple of things. We have robotics, but then we have programming, only programming 1 and so on. Are we thinking of increasing
We
that?
have Project Lead the Way too, which is all of our engineering
computer programming?
courses.
Programming.
Oh, for programming?
Yeah, it's split into a couple of different sections in the disciplines. So I know under science, there were a couple of Project Lead the Way, more engineering type classes. Under the business department, there were a few classes. I
Okay.
believe there might
I'll
even be
look
a
at
few
it
under the
again.
math
There
department.
are a few under the math and business share a couple of
Any of the
classes
STEM
together.
ones do.
What, does computers fall into any one particular department, or?
It typically, so there's two departments that kind of share the wealth with it, so it's typically under science, but it also is under technology. So between the science coordinator and technology coordinator, they kind of work it, they talk, with Bill as well, because we need certain programs to go with things, they kind of work out what's gonna happen. So more of the Project Lead the Way would fall under Dr. Sweeney, where maybe more of the programming would go under, with John Morris, the science coordinator.
Who does engineering?
Marilyn Sweeney, Dr. Marilyn Sweeney.
Any
Thank
questions?
you.
I do. I have a quick question. On the biome, when I look at the average class sizes across the elementaries, the fourth grade, I know you kind of met with the parents about the
I
fourth
did.
grade, because I know that had gone down and up. We're not
Yeah.
gonna make any action on that?
No, when I had met with the parents, I think the number was 98 at the time.
Yeah.
And when we looked at this, these particular numbers, one of the things I had indicated to them, it had actually come down, that was the grade that's been in flux for the last 2 years. But of the 100 students that are actually there, because the BIAM houses the autism spectrum program, there are a number of students who actually are in their fourth graders, but they're not in mainstream classrooms, they're in the autism program. So there were at least 4, so that knocks the average class sizes down to 24.
Okay.
And I'd explained that to the parents that I met with at that time. But even in some of the other numbers, I know at Center, in the third grade, the 101, they actually have a few students that are in the functional life skills program, so they're not really part of a mainstream classroom for the instructional time of the day, so the numbers are actually lower. This report basically takes the total number of students per grade level and divides it by the number of mainstream classes. So the actual enrollments may be slightly lower, they certainly wouldn't be higher, because some of those students are gonna be filtered out.
So any of your special education students that may be in a sub-separate classroom,
Essentially
they're
separate programs.
accounted into
Right there.
your
Yes.
total. So, and so they may be not only in a separate class, but even in a gen ed class, they may be in and out throughout the day.
Correct.
Because they're being pulled out for services and whatnot.
And if they're in a substantially separate program and they're going into a mainstream room, typically they're going in with support. They wouldn't be going back in on their own.
I did have one other question. Any idea, is this unprecedented, this jump up in, registration?
In the last 2 weeks, yes.
Yeah.
For the last 4 years, I have been able to better predict the number of students going into K. We've had a couple of big K years
Right.
of grade schools, Byam a couple of years ago.
Right.
But that was right in the winter and the spring K enrollments. We kind of saw that coming.
And that was just at the start of the program too, right, when we just went to
We
full
went
day?
to full
Right,
day, because
yeah.
we used to have that scramble with the first grade.
Right, right.
But, no, it's been a steady flow of traffic here
Yeah.
the
I
last
think one of the
couple
things
of
that
weeks.
You have
Any
to keep in
particular
mind is
reason?
that people have they're doing leases. A lot of the leases start September 1, so maybe there's an uptick, and we wouldn't know unless we talked to some of those places as well.
The new people come and go, and obviously are different. I'm a little bit surprised by the families that actually have other kids in the school system who are coming in to register now. That's throwing me off.
Now, is this, I mean, and I guess what I'm getting at is there, any correlation between this and the amount of, apartment complexes that we've seen, coming into town recently?
That would be account more for, let's say, new people coming to the district, yes. But even internals within the district, if you're moving, because that does happen around the first of the months. But it's not like we're seeing, 2 leave Center and 2 adding to South Row or whatnot. They're not staying within. These are all additional new numbers. Yeah. So I don't know. There's no quick answer on how to kind of circumvent that.
And this may not be a question that can be answered now, but I did, and I was going to raise it, but I don't think that was the focus today for the high school. What is happening with Plus Block? How does that work now at the high school? There have been several folks who asked me questions about Plus Block. I think there's been a change in how that's operating this year. So if we're
I
not
wish you
doing,
had asked that when Steve was here.
well, I didn't want to put him on the spot.
I can
Linda
speak a
has a
little
lot
bit
of information
to
on
it. So there's been a couple of different iterations between Plus Block, Flex Block, now we're back to Plus Block.
Right.
Sometimes it was used more in the homeroom, it was used for students to go and, work with teachers. So one of the things that they're working to do is, even through like a program, they would like to assign students, the teachers would assign the students to where they need to be, right? Rather than just letting them go out and say, oh, I want to go here, I think I'd like to see this teacher. They're going to try and target especially students that need some support to send them to those teachers. So it's a time during the school day we can actually work with students. And then for those students that may not need support from their teachers, they would have enrichment. So during that Plus Block time, they're going to use that as both like, let's say, intervention, for lack of a better word, and enrichment at the same time, rather than it being, the Flex Block didn't work out as well because students didn't have to come to school if they didn't need Flex Block, but there were students that should have come to school because they needed Flex Block. So they've shifted it to the middle of the day Plus Block that the high school has always had built into their schedule.
Okay. What some folks have told me is that you now need to kind of be scheduled about a week in advance in order to know which teacher you're going to in order to get that. So
Yeah.
just wonder exactly how it's going to work out in terms of, I see what you're targeting. I understand that you're trying to make sure that the students that need the help are going to get the help. I think for the students who don't need it, which is probably a large majority of the students, or a large group of students, then, it's gonna be interesting to see how that works for them within that block.
They did a pilot of this in the spring, and it worked out pretty well. So even those students who you would think may not need help, they need access to their teachers. The other thing you have to keep in mind is high school's a grind. They're going from class to class to class. They've seen like 7 teachers during the day. Sometimes they need a little bit of time to actually decide what they're going to do with that work, so they might have to go work with the teacher. So it's not necessarily, I'm not doing well in your class, I just need to speak with you because I have some questions in addition to my 50-minute block that I just had with you, and I just want to make sure I'm on the right track. So it doesn't have to necessarily be
So to
not
do
doing
that,
well.
if a student just needs to do that, do they need to pre-schedule it in order
They would be
to do it?
scheduled in, so the plus block teacher would, they would be working with their group and saying, okay, it looks like you need this, you need that. They would be able to kind of filter through. They act almost like a homeroom teacher, for lack of a better word. Like, we have scheduled homeroom, so it's almost like having that one place to go to say, this is what I'm gonna need. So the students could even say, I need to see Miss Johnson, so I gotta get in to see her, so she gets scheduled in for that piece.
Okay.
How are we doing facility-wise if we add these new kindergartens, if we've added, you guys, other public classes?
Plenty of room.
It's getting tight.
Okay.
At Byam, we're actually okay because they have traditionally had a few bubble classes and they were down to just 1 for the year. So everyone's got to do a little bit of moving right now, but Byam will be okay. Harrington is very tight because they already have a bubble class in first, second, and third. And I don't believe we've had a school ever have 4 bubble classes, so they were almost going to be like a 5-strand school. They are going to have to basically take back a full-size classroom that had been split between, I want to say, it was a couple specialists. I believe it was a speech and
speech.
someone else. That's going to have to become a classroom, and those related service providers are going to have to work out of smaller offices or smaller rooms. But they do have it. I've been talking to the principals today, talked about, kind of reorging, assuming this goes through this evening, knowing what their layouts are going to be, notifying parents and whatnot. And the general feeling is, well, we would have loved to have known about this a long time ago. It's still a better process to go through now, to notify parents, reshuffle classrooms if we need to, welcome the new teachers on the first day with the new kids, and start off the school year on the right foot, than it would be to try to put together kind of a Band-Aid approach that'll linger for a while through the fall. But they can make it work. I do not believe Harrington is going to have capacity, or it's going to be really tight to ever add another class beyond this. So we're going to have, without realigning the modules and how they're used, so we are going to have to look at that.
I think that's, I know that we had talked about in our goal-setting meeting about revisiting the comprehensive facilities assessment. But, I do think that this is, worth talking about as the year goes on, in terms of the capacity of our facilities.
Sure.
Because, we do have, it has been a topic of discussion over the last couple of years around class size, but you're right, we can only fit so many classes in the building at this point.
Right.
So I think to have a better idea of what our space looks like going forward would be very, very helpful.
What is the difference between Plus Block and Pride, the Pride schedule?
Oh, so, Plus
High
Block
school.
is, like I said, more of the homeroom. They have what they call Pride events. So there's times that they'll pull the students during the Plus Block for maybe a house event. They see the guidance counselors, but for Pride, they do the Pride Awards, so they'll focus on one of the different letters. So P for perseverance, R, I, D, E, and teachers will nominate. Teachers actually, I don't know if students are nominating now, they might be, but teachers will nominate a student for one of the letters that they're focusing on, and that will happen during those Plus Block times. That's when they can have kids come down, like the junior class will come during Plus Block, senior class come during Plus Block. They can have them down in the auditorium and have those Pride awards that are given out to the students.
Okay.
All right, any further questions on class enrollments? I think the numbers look great,
Yeah, they really
having
do.
had classrooms of 27, 29, 23.
And
20,
again,
22,
it's
yeah.
still moving around, so
Yeah.
some of
Yeah.
them that might be high, go
Yeah.
low.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
we're happy with it's a
Before
good
we
balance
leave
this year.
Before we leave numbers, could I ask two more things on numbers? Do we have, what is the number of special education students? We've seen more positions coming in for special ed this year versus last year. Is there an uptick? Is that why we have more positions? What's going on?
No, it's not necessarily more positions, you're just seeing different people
Okay.
in the positions.
Alright.
So through retirement or resignations, it's, the only new position in special education was actually Taryn, who's here this evening. When we went through the budget process, we had traditionally had 3 special ed chairs in the district, and we talked about adding a 4th.
Okay.
Because particularly, say, at, well, actually, Jeff's wife's school at the Byam, you'd have a regular population of students you'd be serving on IEPs, but then also having the number of students in the autism program just takes a lot of work and attention. So that particular program then feeding to Parker and then feeding to the high school, we're gonna have this, Taryn is actually gonna specialize in serving those special populations. So the regular special ed chair will be serving the regular students, the regular special education students within the building, just to help kind of shift the workload a little bit. And also some of the things that we've heard about parents with response times and whatnot, being able to add some of the, some extra supports. So she's really the only new position that we have.
Okay.
The others were replacement people in the
Alright.
district.
And then one more question. Do we know the percentage of ELL students that are coming in to the system this year? Is it higher or?
New students to the district, I'd have to, I mean, I could run a report based on what we left with in June and how many new have registered. I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay.
I can find out for you.
So it'll come along the year, but those are just questions I had. Thank you.
Sure.
Right.
Do the, just as a note, do the layout of these reports work for people as far as like going forward?
They do.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
All right, multifunction school.
Very exciting, as
Magic school bus.
Principal Murray talked about. No, we've actually talked about this for a couple of years, and I know Donna was very excited when we made this purchase, and it's right over the window, Donna, right over your shoulder.
Very funny, Jeff.
Thank you. But, no, one of the issues I think a lot of high schools in particular have struggled with is transportation for smaller groups or clubs, athletic teams, and it's just been very difficult with the limited number of transportation providers in the area and also the cost to transport, when you can even get it, a team or a club on a large school bus. So a lot of districts have moved towards utilizing these, what they term multifunction school activity vehicles, for a couple of reasons. Number one, they can be operated just using a regular driver's license, so you don't need any kind of special CDL license or whatnot to operate them. They really drive, and I've driven it, they drive like a van, so they're actually very comfortable to drive in. This is a brand new one, so obviously it's very current, it drives very well. It seats 14 passengers and a driver. So it's ideal for, again, your small teams or your small clubs, even during the school day, if you have a class that needed to go on a little field trip, you know, it can be driven by a staff member with the club or team. On the sports front, we have a lot of weekend events where, say, a number of kids on the cross-country team will go to New York or something for an event, and you pay an astronomical fee for a bus driver to travel with the team. This will be a great vehicle for a team like that to use. If you have a wrestling team go away for a weekend or whatnot, and you have to buy them a vehicle and they have to go overnight, the costs just get to be extensive. So this is something that actually we think is going to be very cost-effective. I thank Joanna and Kerry Kearns in the business office for putting together a little procedure manual for our staff. We're taking the use of this very seriously. We are going to track the usage by group that uses it on a daily basis, so that I can actually come back to you and show how this has been a cost-effective purchase. And we potentially may want to explore more, given the demand, but we'll be able to now track that and actually see what kind of usage we get and report regularly to you what the savings is compared to using this vehicle, and if we had to contract with North Reading for a bus for a particular event. So again, no action on your required on your part tonight. Just wanted to show you that we did go through the legwork of actually putting a procedure manual together. We've actually produced a video that our staff will watch. Did you want to see the video, Don?
No, no,
Okay.
good, thanks.
So there's a video for them to watch as to how to operate the car or the truck safely, all the different forms that they'll use if there ever were an accident or any kind of attention was necessary. And I think it's going to be a great resource. So just wanted to highlight and spotlight that for you this evening.
So we don't have to vote anything.
No vote. It really just kind of showing you that we do have procedures and whatnot in effect for the started use of this.
In all seriousness, I mean, there are a lot of school systems who really have found this to be a very cost-effective way of dealing with transportation.
Right.
Because it is so incredibly expensive. And just to highlight some of the other uses, I mean, you know, we had talked about this, this is a great opportunity for some of our special ed students to get out into the community, whether it be for job training or, you know, community development, skills training. And also a really good opportunity for us to interact with other places here in town, the senior center, and maybe places that, you know, as I said, would have been prohibitive for us to be going to because it was so expensive, and doing some outreach. We've had some great programs at some of these places, but,
Right.
you know, the cost of a bus is crazy, how much it costs now.
If you can even get it.
If you can even get it.
And you're
right.
on their schedule, and that's often difficult with some of the after-school stuff.
Right.
So,
So do we, when I look at this handbook, or, you know, this procedures book, what are we doing? We're keeping a list of people who are okay to drive? How do we do it?
So prior to being able, do you want me to go with this? Okay. Prior to being able to utilize the vehicle, staff members, you have to be a staff member, will have to go through a training. So they'll have to read the procedure manual, there's a sign-off if they've received that. They'll have to watch the training video, you know, go inspect the car, be comfortable with it. And then they will submit a basic, not an application, but like an approval form for processing. Once we've processed that and authorized them to use the vehicle, then they'll be able to actually schedule it to go out for an event. So they're gonna have to go through that process and be approved before they can actually utilize the vehicle.
Okay, and then every year, or how do we track expiration of licenses, anything like that? Are we going to be doing that kind of thing?
Yeah, the individual, I mean, on a yearly basis, we look at different staff credentials, but as we're going through this process now, when staff are applying, we'll keep a database of who has actually been authorized to drive the vehicle with all the pertinent information. So on a year-to-year basis, we're gonna have to go through a
Okay.
process to renew, you know, authorization to utilize the vehicle.
I think one of the things they have to do too when they submit is they have to have a copy of their driver's
Driver's
license.
license.
So they'll be able to see the expiration date on the driver's license.
Right,
So when they
So-
apply, they have to,
okay, I'm
Submit.
sorry, I have to think like an attorney, so I'm just making sure, I don't know what the responsibility is of the district to make certain that that driver does not then have a restriction, a violation, or whatever throughout the year. So that was the concern I had, and I don't know what districts do, so just, you know, to
Yeah,
make sure.
in their procedures, basically, I mean, they'll get the clearance upon initial review from us. The procedure would require them to notify us if they've had any accident, ticket, things along those lines. That then puts the burden on them to tell us that. It would be the same, unfortunately, if, you know, you ran a background check on someone today and they cleared, and they did something wrong a week from now and they didn't tell us. It wouldn't catch up to us until we re-ran their application. So I see us getting in a habit of, on a regular basis, maybe it's annually, kind of rerunning the approvals for individuals. But whatever the gap is between when they're approved and when they're reapproved, the onus is on them to tell us if there's an issue. I have to say, most people are pretty forthcoming, because it's a great responsibility to drive a vehicle and drive students around. If I were them, I wouldn't want that falling on me if I knew I had any type of potential liability coming my way. But that is gonna be a work in progress.
Okay.
Jay, I was just wondering if Joanna could tell us, you know, what does a bus cost now, like a school bus, you know, to, let's say we wanted to do a field trip for a day. You know, what would the cost be?
Joanna will tell us.
So it, there's kind of it's around $300, and then it can go up or down if the driver has to wait for you, and that's all kind of spelled out in the contract.
Okay, thank you,
On average, and it goes up each year a little bit.
thank you.
It's costly.
Yeah, and I
What
guess.
we will
yes.
do is track this.
Yep.
You know, to say, all right, it would have cost us 300, but it cost us, X because we use the vehicle.
Absolutely. I just kept on saying transportation's expensive, but I just wanted to make sure that people understood how expensive it really is. Be able to put a dollar amount to it.
Right.
So, thank you.
Okay, anything else on the bus? Great, can't wait to see how it gets used.
I know, I'm looking forward to it too. Yeah, it'll hopefully be in use right after the start of the school year.
All right, budget adjustments.
Yep, so this really ties in primarily with our discussion earlier about adding a kindergarten teacher at Byham and adding a kindergarten teacher at Harrington. As you recall, as we went through the budget process last spring, we had identified several areas at the high school in particular where due to less enrollment and less course requests that we were going to be able to make some reductions in staff. Obviously, we try to take advantage of any attrition whenever we can if we know someone's resigning or retiring. But we ended up having a number of positions at the high school that we didn't fill, and that they're in the budget, but we didn't actually fill the positions. So the recommendation would basically be to take two of those positions. One was a math teacher position, and one was a business teacher position, for the total of $113,934, and transfer those to cover the Byham kindergarten and the Harrington kindergarten position. That's the first part of the request. And then secondary request for transfer is, as we got into the other bubble classrooms in the district that shifted from school to school, we needed to buy some additional furniture, basically for those classrooms at Center and Harrington. So we went ahead over the summer because we had to make the purchase and utilize existing supply funding in those two schools, but we now need to replenish that. So I asked Joanna to identify a couple of areas within the budget where we could, where we anticipate receiving some savings or have received savings, and to be able to offset that cost, and that's $17,220. So we would have those two budget recommendations before you this evening for consideration.
Anybody have any questions on either transfer?
So the math and the business teacher at the high school are gone because of the enrollment. People
was
that enroll
enrollment.
for the classes.
Enrollment driven.
I have a question about the motion.
Sure.
Can I do these separately, or should I do them together?
I would do them separately.
That's what I thought. Okay. I don't have any other questions.
Any other questions before we? Okay, go ahead.
All right, here we go. You used to give a cheat sheet for Al.
I know.
I know.
I forgot the cheat sheet. We'll try to do that.
You've been
the
forgetting
next
for a
time.
few months. It'll come up next year in your review. So, I make a motion to transfer the amount of $113,934 from the Chelmsford High School math position and the Chelmsford High School business position to the Byham kindergarten position and Harrington kindergarten position.
That works.
Any seconds?
Second.
Any further discussion? Okay, John, vote.
Aye.
Maria? Jeff?
Aye.
Donna?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0.
All right. The second one, can I do as listed?
Sure.
Yeah. All right. I make a motion to transfer the funds from the accounts as listed for the total amount of $17,220 to the center supplies account and the Harrington supplies account.
Any seconds?
Second?
Any further questions, discussion?
Can I ask one question here?
Absolutely.
On the world language coordinator position, you say here that some stipends are eliminated. So,
Right, well, so when we didn't have a coordinator, in lieu of having a coordinator, we used to provide a stipend for a teacher to be able to do some of those coordinator activities. But now
Okay.
that we actually have hired a coordinator, whenever we've done that, we've removed the stipends, because the duty is gonna fall on the coordinator. So we had already,
Okay.
we had budgeted for the stipends, though, in the budget book, so we won't utilize those stipends at this point.
okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, John?
Aye.
Maria?
Aye.
Jeff?
Aye.
Donna?
Aye.
Aye, 5-0.
Thank you. Next item on your agenda this evening is just a personnel report detailing our activity for the month of July. Again, this is just documentation of the, kind of the ins and outs of the district, so that you can have a sense of who is coming on board, resigning, retiring, or even some of the internal transfers within the district. July and August are obviously heavy months for us with the hiring season. The August report will be quite extensive. But I just wanted to share that with you this evening, so if you happen to see a face in a different school or a different position, you have a sense of where that was coming from, so.
So on this, do we still have a lot of positions open?
No, professional positions we do not. We're actually down to, I believe they're trying to finalize one last special education position hire at Parker Middle School. We obviously then have the two kindergarten teacher positions, if that, well, that was approved this evening. And the rest are basically paras. So there is still some hiring going on of paraprofessionals, and hopefully that will be concluded by Friday. But we're in very good shape for the start of the school year.
Okay, in administrative positions, we just have the, communications person.
The communications manager position hopefully will be finalizing this week, but that one is still outstanding.
That remains open, okay, and how's it going for substitutes?
Cheryl actually was talking to us this morning on her weekly update, and she has approximately 125, I believe she
Okay.
said, 120 or 125 subs geared up and ready to go on day one, which is actually similar to last year. So we're on track with what we had last year at the start of the school year. The difficulty with subs just at this time of the year is we want to kind of lock them in to be subs for Chelmsford. A lot of other districts are trying to do the
Right.
same. And they are a group that oftentimes will fill in for, say, like paraprofessional roles, whether it's here or somewhere else. So the first month of school, it does take a little bit of time to kind of shake that out. But we're starting with about the same number of subs this year as we did last year.
Okay.
Ongoing efforts, we're still trying to recruit. It's just very difficult to attract good quality day-to-day subs.
Did we look at this, the wages being offered in districts around us and whether we're competitive?
Yeah, I feel we're competitive. I think,
Okay.
there's an issue of, do you spend more to be able to, kind of pop to the top of the list? That is something that the HR office will look at every year. If we were going to make a change like that, because it is pretty substantive, we'd have to do that through the budget process,
Okay.
which we decided to talk about like late fall of this year.
Speaking of substitutes, one of the positions that left was a nurse substitute coordinator. Is that somebody did specifically the nurses, or?
Oh, there was an, which,
This was,
there was an individual on here.
yeah, right, this one there. I just didn't know what that position.
Where is it?
Page 3 of your report, personnel report. Oh, yeah.
Oh, right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was an individual that used to actually, it was a stipended position
Okay.
for someone to, she also happened to be a day-to-day sub-nurse for us, but she used to receive a stipend to help coordinate the nursing gaps.
Okay.
And she is moving on. I believe she moved out of state, but she is moving on, so we'll be replacing that with Peggy
Okay, so Peggy's gonna take care of,
in the interim.
okay.
And then we'll look to have someone help with the scheduling of the subs.
Just with regards to the subs, it's not just the pay, but it's the amount of available bodies. There are just not a lot of people out there. I mean, there's, the economy is good and people are
Right.
employed. And so it's really hard to put together a really strong, big pool of substitute teachers. I think it's a problem, not just in our district, but
No,
in
it's a
many.
problem everywhere, yeah.
Right, anything else on personnel? Okay. Last item?
And last item for me this evening, just a couple of updates for a couple of the items that we've been tracking. If you drive by the Center of Harrington schools, the new parking lots are done. So last week, they received the top coat of pavement. So at this point, that's just kind of setting up. They need a number of days to just kind of firm up. And then Gary indicates that the striping of those lots will happen at the end of this week, so prior to the start of the school year. So that is good on those two. The contractor that was awarded the projects also owns a piece of landscaping at both schools, so replacing some grass and planting some trees. Gary did indicate, and I agree with him, that we're gonna wait until late September, early October to do that. We'll hold back some money for that to be done, but this really isn't a good planting season. So it's not gonna affect the use of the parking lots whatsoever, but in the long run, it's better to plant grass and trees as we get into the fall. So we'll just hold back money to do that, but I think people are gonna be very happy with both parking lots. The high school parking lot was striped at some point over the summer, I forget exactly when, but the back lot looks very nice. And as Steve had indicated too, they were actually able to add some lighting to the islands, which I think looks very nice. Gary was able to do that. That was a project he wanted to knock off that looks very good. And I think they also added irrigation to the islands, just to help the grass and the trees to grow. So students will park within the white lines at the high school, and staff will park within the yellow lines, just so that people have a sense of where they're going. And then lastly, as Joanna drafted up for us and reported, the efforts for student transportation have been ongoing. As of last Friday, it was the date we actually said we were gonna mail the bus passes, so the bus passes did go out. They were mailed to, I gotta find my number. Joanna, help me.
3,028.
3,028 students, and we're anticipating about 3,400. So we still have a couple hundred kids that we assume will take the bus and want to take it. They may be waiting to register with some of the other families. We'll have to see over the next couple of days. But really, there was a significant effort that went into the notification of families and trying to get them to enroll early. Peter in the transportation office has done a nice job revising the bus routes, and it was great to be able to get those passes out on Friday. Hopefully, we have a smooth start to the school year with that.
Great. Any questions on these items? All right, I believe that's all the new
That is all
items.
I
So, anybody have any liaison reports?
The Friends of Music will be meeting Thursday. They'll be having their first meeting of the year.
Anybody else? Obviously, PTOs and all that, they're gonna be starting up pretty soon, so if you haven't reached out to the schools that your liaisons to, please do, find out when they're meeting. You know, a lot of them have websites, and you can always find the information there too, so. But, you know, I'm sure within the first month or so, there's probably gonna be a meeting there. All right, any new items?
I did update that spreadsheet in the Dropbox on the assignments.
Oh, yes, we did
Yeah,
update the
one
liaison
side.
assignments, so that there's, we all set, so now Jeff's in the queue. Any new items anybody has? No, just a couple things to mention. Should have mentioned this earlier. You know, one of the things that we talked about at our little workshop is trying to be a little bit more eco-friendly at our meetings. Typically, we have giant paper packets in front of us, like Mr. Doherty has tonight, because he's the new number. So we decided that we were going to try to use our computers more for the agenda. So if you notice that we're on our computers a little bit more in this meeting than in the past, we're going to try to cut down our footprint a little bit as far as that's concerned. And the other thing I just wanted to mention to the committee is that there's going to be opening day at the high school on the 26th.
Monday.
At 8 o'clock, if anybody's available and would like to attend. You know, all the teachers will be there, and I know some of us will be working. But all the teachers will be there, and I'm sure they'd love to see your smiling faces there. So it's 8 o'clock at the high school
Performing
on
Arts Center.
Monday.
The PAC.
At the PAC.
The PAC.
Right, anything else? Okay, I think we can dispense with public comment. So what we're gonna be doing tonight is we're gonna be adjourning to executive session.
Correct.
And not returning back to regular session, so entertain a motion for that.
I make a motion to move to executive session and not return to regular session for the purpose of, oh, I knew you were gonna do that to me.
Let me help you.
Yes.
To discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining and litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the public body.
You expected me to memorize that?
No, you can just say as Jay said.
As Jay Lang said.
Second.
Second, okay. All in favor of moving to executive session?
Aye.
Aye.
5-0.
Does that have to be a roll call vote?
That one has to be roll call.
Okay, roll call. John?
Aye.
Maria?
Hi.
Jeff?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0 still. Okay, thank you very much.